Sarah. Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
Real or ransom. Might want to get video for it extra. Because I got this.
Sarah.
Real or ransom.
Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
Oh. That's what I feel like when you ching on me.
Sarah.
Fuck you.
I can't breathe, Sarah.
Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
Sarah.
February 23rd, 2020, Winter Park, Florida. A woman recorded 2 videos on her cell phone. What those videos captured would become the evidence that convicted her of murder. In the first video, a blue suitcase sits in a living room. Inside the suitcase is a man, Jorge Torres Jr., 42 years old, 103 pounds. Torres can be heard calling out from inside the suitcase. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. He is pushing against the fabric from the inside. He is begging to be released. The woman recording responds, "For everything you've done to me, fuck you, stupid," she continues. "That's what you do when you choke me." And again, "Oh, that's what I feel like when you cheat on me." Torres continues pleading. He cannot breathe. He is trapped. "You should probably shut the fuck up." The woman recording is Sarah Boone, and she is laughing. In the second video, the suitcase has been moved. It is now flipped over in a different position. This means Sarah Boone was mobile, active, moving around the apartment while Jorge Torres suffocated inside. Torres continues to plead for help. His voice is weaker. Sarah Boone's final recorded words to him: "That's what you get." The videos were recorded shortly after 11 p.m. on February 23rd. 14 hours later, Sarah Boone called 911.
Sarah.
February 24th, 2020. 1:01 in the afternoon. Sarah Boone called 911 to report her boyfriend was dead inside their apartment. She told the dispatcher they had been drinking wine the night before. She said they were playing hide and seek. Boone claimed Torres had voluntarily climbed into a suitcase. She said both of them thought it would be funny. She told the dispatcher she went upstairs, passed out, and woke hours later to find him unresponsive. "I don't know what happened. He had blood coming from his mouth. He's purple."
911, what is the location of your emergency?
4748 France Court.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
Okay, send the line for the fire department. Do not hang up.
Fire rescue. Tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in his case and we were playing, like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep, and I woke up, and he was dead in the suitcase, so I don't know what happened.
Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what, ma'am?
No, I pulled him out of the suitcase.
He was in a suitcase?
Yes, and I fell asleep.
Right, is he breathing?
No.
I need you to get him on the floor, flat on his back for me, okay?
I did. I tried giving him CPR.
Yeah, okay.
He's purple.
Okay, listen to me. Lay him flat on his... Okay, ma'am, listen to me. I want you to lay him flat on his back for me on the floor.
I did.
Okay, wait.
He's stiff and purple.
Okay, man, that's fine. We're still going to do compressions on him, okay?
Minutes after the call, Orange County Fire Department arrived at the apartment on France Lane. They confirmed Jorge Torres Jr. was deceased. He was 42 years old. Deputy Kayla Rodriguez of the Orange County Sheriff's Office was first law enforcement on scene. Her body camera captured what she found. Torres's body was still inside the suitcase, a blue suitcase, large enough to contain an adult in a fetal position. Sarah Boone appeared frantic to the deputies. She told them she had tried everything to wake Torres. She said she assumed he had passed out from drinking. She stated she had no intent to harm him. According to Boone's account, Torres had been inside the suitcase for somewhere between 8 and 11 hours.
But we're drinking. We had a bottle of wine last night. Okay. So then it's like we decided to play hide and seek, right? Okay. So he gets in the suitcase. Okay. Who is this guy? That's my ex-husband, my former husband. How did he live here with you guys? No, I called him over here. Okay. Okay. I didn't know what to do. Okay. I didn't know what to do. Okay. So then he came over here. Here, let's talk in private. Okay. I called you guys. I tried giving him CPR. The problem is I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
When did you do CPR?
This morning, when I found it.
Before you called?
Yes!
1 o'clock right now.
I tried. I was awake, but I actually got out of the bed at like 12:30ish, whatever. So I came downstairs, and I was like, oh, he's in the suitcase still. And that's when I found him, and I took him out. I tried doing CPR, and then I called him, and then I called you guys.
Did he get here before the fire department got here?
Who?
Your husband or your ex-husband?
Yes.
Okay. Where does he live at?
Right down the street.
Okay. So you were playing and who dipped him up in?
I did, but then I fell asleep.
Okay.
Crime scene investigator Melissa Roughgarden processed the apartment. The suitcase was collected as evidence. Photographs were taken. The scene was documented. But deputies noticed something that raised suspicions. Jorge Torres had injuries on his body. Scratches, bruising, blunt force trauma. This was not a simple accident. This was a death investigation. Jorge Torres Jr. weighed 103 pounds at the time of his death. He stood no chance of fighting his way out of a fully zipped suitcase. The autopsy determined Torres died of asphyxiation, suffocation. His body showed multiple injuries consistent with a struggle inside a confined space. Scratches on his back, a large scratch on his neck, bruising on his left shoulder, bruises on his forehead from blunt force trauma, a cut on his lip. The evidence suggested Torres had fought to escape. He had pushed against the suitcase from the inside. He had struggled for air, and he had died alone, confined in darkness. Torres left behind a mother, Blanca Torres, sisters, daughters, a family. But the physical evidence raised a question detectives needed answered. If this was an accident, as Sarah Boone claimed, why did Torres have so many injuries? And why hadn't she called for help sooner? The answer was on Sarah Boone's cell phone. At 2:12 in the afternoon, Sarah Boone made a decision that would seal her fate. She gave verbal and written consent for detectives to download her cell phone. No search warrant was required. No judge needed to approve the request. Boone voluntarily handed investigators access to everything on her phone. Detectives began a forensic examination. They extracted data, text messages, call logs, photos, videos. And what they found contradicted every word Sarah Boone had said. 2 videos, recorded the night before, time-stamped shortly after 11 p.m. on February 23rd. The videos showed Jorge Torres inside the suitcase, alive, pleading for help.
Sarah. Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
Real ransom.
Later that afternoon, Sarah Boone was brought to the Orange County Sheriff's Office for questioning. The interview was recorded. Detectives showed Boone the videos from her phone. They asked her to explain what they had just witnessed. One detective pointed out the obvious contradiction. In the video, you can't see any holes. There's nowhere in that where the zipper separation you can see a hole. If there's a hole, he's pushing on it, begging you to get out. We should probably see that hole. Another detective added, he essentially would have been able to get out. Boone maintained the suitcase was not fully zipped. She insisted she had left it partially open so Torres could escape. I did not zip it all the way. I did not zip it up all the way. This is horrific, okay? Horrific, horrific. I don't think I'll ever be right because of this. The detectives confronted her with the physical evidence. The videos showed no visible gaps in the zipper, no openings, no way for Torres to have freed himself. Boone also claimed she did not remember recording the videos. She said she had been too intoxicated to recall. It was not intentional. I'll put my hand on the Bible. It was not intentional. I would not do that to him nor anyone else. But the videos told a different story. They showed a woman who was conscious, aware, and in control. A woman who was mocking her boyfriend as he suffocated. The interrogation lasted several hours. Sarah Boone never confessed to murder. She maintained it was an accident, a tragic misunderstanding. But detectives had all the evidence they needed. On February 25, 2020, at 8:30 in the evening, Sarah Boone was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. She was held without bail at the Orange County Jail. The charge of second-degree murder required prosecutors to prove 4 elements. That Jorge Torres Jr. was dead, that his death was caused by Sarah Boone's actions, that the killing was unlawful, and that Boone's actions were imminently dangerous and demonstrated a depraved mind without regard for human life. The videos provided direct evidence of each element. Torres was dead. Boone had zipped him in the suitcase and refused to release him. The killing was unlawful, and her own recorded words demonstrated a depraved mind. That's what you get. Shut the fuck up. Laughter. Sarah Boone had documented her own crime, but the case was more complicated than a simple murder prosecution. Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres had a documented history of domestic violence. In July 2018, both were arrested following a domestic incident. Boone was charged with battery by strangulation. Torres was also arrested. Boone's charge was later dismissed. In 2019, Torres was arrested 3 times for battery against Sarah Boone. During one incident, he allegedly punched her in the ear and the side of her head. Each time Torres was arrested, Sarah Boone bailed him out of jail. She brought him home. The cycle continued. A neighbor, Pearl Walker, testified at trial that she had seen Boone with injuries. Walker said she heard Torres and Boone arguing almost daily. Orange County deputies had responded to multiple domestic calls at their apartment. The pattern was documented. The violence was real.
In the time that you knew Ms. Boone, did you witness anything about her person or her body that gave you cause for concern?
Sometimes I would see it like she had been choked around her neck or her arm be hurting. Have a mark on her arm. And I just asked her.
This history would become central to Sarah Boone's defense. Her attorneys would argue she was a victim herself, a battered spouse who had finally fought back. A psychologist, Dr. Julie Harper, evaluated Boone and diagnosed her with battered spouse syndrome. Harper also diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety. But prosecutors would argue that none of this justified murder, because at the moment Jorge Torres died, he was not a threat. He was trapped, helpless, begging for air. And Sarah Boone had the power to save him. She chose not to. What should have been a straightforward prosecution became a 4-year odyssey through the court system, not because of legal complexity, but because of Sarah Boone herself. Between her arrest in February 2020 and her trial in October 2024, Sarah Boone went through 9 different attorneys. 8 of them were appointed by the court. One by one, they withdrew from her case. Attorney number 1, Mauricio Padilla, was a private lawyer Boone hired to replace her initial court-appointed counsel. Padilla represented her for more than 2 years. In 2022, he withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences. Attorneys 2 through 7 were all court-appointed public defenders. All withdrew citing similar reasons: irreconcilable differences, ethical considerations, client conflicts. Attorney number 6, Frank Bankowitz, withdrew after Boone called him a dud and a buffoon.
Heard today. So, Mr. Bankwitz, I'll start with you. Tell me why you're moving to withdraw.
Judge, the letters that have been coming to Your Honor, the derogatory berating of my services in this case, I can't effectively represent her. She doesn't trust me. She calls me a dud, I think, a buffoon, on and on and on and on. And no one should have to endure that type of derogatory comments and expect to effectively represent someone, especially in a murder case.
Attorney number 8, Patricia Cashman, spent over 20 hours attempting to work with Boone on her defense. Cashman said Boone walked out of multiple conferences. When Cashman tried to update her on depositions, Boone refused to listen. Cashman withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences and ethical considerations. At a hearing in June 2024, Boone told the judge she was unhappy with Cashman. She accused her attorney of lying, of having a snotty attitude, of being prejudiced against her. Everyone constantly blames me, that I am the reason why I am supposedly going on attorney number 8, which I am not the reason for any of them.
Try to update her with regard to the depositions that I took recently. She opted to exit the jail conference. When I tried to review some things with regard to discovery as to things I wanted to make sure she was aware of, she walked out.
I had told her from day one that her snotty attitude was inappropriate, and I tried very hard to bear with her and her attitude. I don't know what it is that I'm doing wrong to her, but I feel that her attitude has equaled prejudice, which is not in my favor, especially considering she supposedly represented my life.
But Judge Michael Kranick had seen enough. On June 28, 2024, he issued a ruling. Sarah Boone had forfeited her right to any more court-appointed attorneys. The judge wrote, "It has become apparent to the court that defendant will not permit herself to be represented by anyone." He noted that Boone had been warned, multiple times, that she might not receive another court-appointed attorney, that she would have to represent herself if this pattern continued. "Actions speak louder than words," the judge wrote. Kranick ruled that Boone's behavior demonstrated she was using attorney conflicts to delay the trial. He set a firm trial date, October 7, 2024, and he made clear the trial would not be continued for any reason, including the retention of new counsel. Sarah Boone would have to represent herself, or find a private attorney willing to take her case.
As the court has determined that you have forfeited and alternatively waived by your conduct the right to court-appointed counsel, the court is not required to appoint standby counsel. That's Brown v. State, 45 Southern 3rd, 110 at pinpoint 114 through 115, Florida 1st DCA 2010, citing to, again, Jones v. State by the Florida Supreme Court in 1984. There is no Sixth Amendment right to simultaneously proceeding pro se and with legal representation by the Florida Supreme Court in 2009 in Shepard v. State, 17 Southern 3rd, 275 and 279. For the reasons that the court identified in its 16-page order previously entered, your request for standby counsel is denied.
In July 2024, Sarah Boone appeared at a hearing representing herself. She told the judge she was thoroughly confused by the legal process. Then she submitted a document to the court, a hand-drawn advertisement seeking a lawyer. The crude drawing showed a stick figure in jail and the words asking for legal help. It was unlike anything typically filed in a murder case. The ad made its way to local television news, and it caught the attention of an attorney in the Florida Panhandle, 300 miles away. James Owens practiced law in Milton, Florida. He saw Boone's ad on TV. He didn't respond immediately, but eventually he sent her a letter. Someone from out of state called Owens to verify he was legitimate. The identity of that person remains unknown. Owens agreed to represent Sarah Boone, pro bono, free of charge. He became attorney number 9. At a hearing in September 2024, Owens told the judge he needed more time to prepare. He wanted to delay the trial until the end of the year. He needed to review evidence, conduct depositions, and hire expert witnesses for a battered spouse syndrome defense. Judge Cranick denied the request. The trial date stood October 7, 2024. Owens had less than a month to prepare for a murder trial. On October 14, 2024, jury selection began. The trial had been delayed 1 week to allow Owens additional preparation time. A 6-person jury was seated. 8 alternates were chosen. 4 days later, on October 18th, opening statements began. Assistant State Attorney William J. stood before the jury and laid out the prosecution's case. This defendant zipped Jorge Torres shut in a suitcase. She was able to do this because at the time of his death, he weighed 103 pounds. She did this with a malicious intent to punish him, and then she went up to sleep and left him to take his final breaths on this earth alone. The state's theory was clear. Sarah Boone had intentionally confined Jorge Torres as punishment. She had mocked him as he suffocated, and she had left him to die. Defense attorney James Owens presented a different narrative. The prosecutors mentioned that she wanted him to die. The furthest from the truth. She loved him. She hated the abuse. She couldn't leave. She tried kicking him out 6 or 7 times. Owens argued that Sarah Boone was a victim of domestic violence, a battered spouse who had suffered years of abuse, a woman who, in that moment, feared for her own safety. Over the next week, witnesses testified. Deputies who had responded to previous domestic calls at the apartment. The neighbor who had seen Boone with injuries. The crime scene investigator who showed the jury the blue suitcase. Dr. Julie Harper, the psychologist, testified that Boone suffered from battered spouse syndrome, that she had PTSD, that the death of her parents early in life had affected her psychological development. Harper said Boone had narcissistic personality traits, but did not meet the criteria for a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. The prosecution presented the cell phone videos. The jury watched. They listened to Jorge Torres pleading for help. They heard Sarah Boone's responses, the taunting, the laughter. And then Sarah Boone took the stand in her own defense. She testified that when Torres got in the suitcase, she thought it was funny. I couldn't believe that he could fit in the suitcase. But then, she said, she became terrified. Terrified that if she let him out, he would hurt her. She claimed that talking to Torres while he was in the suitcase would be helpful. I wanted him to try to understand how I felt, so maybe he could progress and be a better person. The prosecutor asked why she didn't unzip the suitcase after Torres said he couldn't breathe. Boone's answer was not recorded in detail in the public record, but the prosecutor reminded the jury of what the video showed. Not a woman in fear, a woman in control, a woman punishing her boyfriend.
I zipped him up. We thought it was funny, and we're joking about how he was, I guess, small enough to fit inside of the suitcase.
All right, so what happened then?
From there, it was just, we were laughing about it, and it was just strange that he was small enough to fit in there, and then I kind of moved it around a little bit with him in the suitcase still. It was still funny that he was still in the suitcase. Just, I think he and I were just kind of...
On October 25th, closing arguments were delivered. Prosecutor Dave Cacciatore stood before the jury with the blue suitcase, the physical evidence, the murder weapon. James Owens made a final plea for his client. He asked the jury to consider the abuse she had suffered, the fear she had lived with. The jury deliberated for approximately 90 minutes. They returned a verdict. Guilty, second-degree murder, unanimous. Sarah Boone remained stoic as the verdict was read. Jorge Torres' family declined to speak with the media. In early November, Sarah Boone filed a motion for a new trial. She claimed there had been prosecutorial misconduct. She argued that being denied court-appointed counsel had been an error. She cited emotional outbursts in the courtroom. She claimed the trial had been unfair. On December 2, 2024, the day of her sentencing, Judge Cranick denied the motion. The judge reviewed the trial record. He had participated in the trial personally. He had seen all the evidence. He found no reversible error. The sentencing would proceed. Jorge Torres's mother, Blanca Torres, stood before the court. She wept. Since that day I can't sleep. It's hard for me to remember that moment. My son is not here no more. She not only killed my son, she killed a father, a brother, an uncle. It's been hard on my family. Sometimes when I look out the window, I'm waiting for him to come and say, "Mom, I love you." Blanca Torres told the court she didn't hate Sarah Boone, but she believed Boone deserved life in prison. Jorge's sister, Victoria Torres, was next. Sarah deserves to rot in jail. Sarah has caused a lifetime of pain, a lifetime of hearing my brother plead for his life. Victoria said that using suitcases was now triggering for her. I try not to close it all the way. Jorge's daughter, Ana Victoria Torres, spoke about her father. He was one of a kind, an incredible father. She said his death had left her with chronic depression and anxiety. In the first year after his death, she woke up screaming every morning, wishing it was a nightmare, only to remember all over again that her father was gone. Unfortunately, his light was dimmed on earth by evilness, but with us, we will forever make his name live on.
George Torres Jr.'s mother and sister were in the courtroom to deliver emotional victim impact statements.
Sometimes when I look out the window, I'm waiting for him to come and say, "Mom, I love you." Such a simple thing as using a suitcase is so triggering. I try not to close it all the way.
Sarah Boone was given the opportunity to address the court. She spoke for 20 minutes. The ifs and whys and how really don't matter. It happened, and I'm sorry. Words cannot describe, and I hope that everyone can forgive me. The Torres family most of all, and his daughters, because I know what he meant to them. She detailed the abuse she said she had suffered. She claimed Jorge Torres had kicked, punched, spit on, raped, stabbed, and choked her. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster. And no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. She asked for forgiveness from Torres and his family. I ask his forgiveness and that he looks for me at the gates of heaven so I can tell him how sorry I am endlessly, and that I never stop loving him. Prosecutor Dave Cacciatore responded. He told the judge that Sarah Boone had shown no remorse. He played the cell phone video again. The jury had already seen it. But Cacciatore wanted the judge to remember what the evidence showed. Jorge Torres inside the suitcase, unable to breathe, begging for help. Sarah Boone laughing. Cacciatore argued that Boone had positioned herself as a victim throughout the proceedings. A victim of Jorge Torres, a victim of his family, a victim of the police, a victim of social media, a victim of the justice system. She's the victim of Jorge Torres' family. She's the victim of the police. She's the victim of social media. It's all about survival. He asked the judge to impose the maximum sentence. Life in prison. Defense attorney James Owens made a final plea for mercy. He noted the years of abuse Boone had suffered, the battered spouse syndrome diagnosis. He asked the judge to consider a lesser sentence, but Judge Michael Kranick had made his decision.
She recounted the litany of evil deeds and mistreatments that he perpetrated upon her. She's the victim of George Torres' family. She's the victim of the police. She's the victim of social media. It's all about Sarah Boone.
Sarah Boone was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Boone remained stoic as the sentence was announced. Jorge Torres' mother and sister burst into tears. Defense attorney James Owens said he was surprised the judge had not shown more mercy. He said an appeal could have a chance, but it would probably take years. Sarah Boone had 30 days to file a notice of appeal. She was transferred to the custody of the Florida Department of Corrections.
The court has had the opportunity to review the evidence and testimony that was presented at trial. The victim impact statements presented here today, the statements of character witnesses, both orally and in writing, Dr. Harper's report and testimony, the defendant's testimony, pre-sentencing investigation, the arguments of the state and the arguments of the defense. Court pronounces sentence as follows. Ms. Boone, court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections with credit time served that Madam Clerk will provide to you momentarily.
10 days after her sentencing, Sarah Boone sent another letter to Judge Kranick. It was a rambling document. She quoted the Roman politician Cicero. She cited the Bouvier Law Dictionary. She appealed to the wisdom of Kintsukuroi, a Japanese philosophy about repairing broken things. She accused some of her 9 trial attorneys of perjury. She claimed her First and Sixth Amendment rights had been violated. She wrote that prosecutors had used imaginary space adventures and fictional characters to blind and bedazzle the jury. I forgive the jury, truly, for being weary from this confusion and dysfunction, also from being hungry and tired and wanting to go home to their families after being away in full capacity for 2 full weeks. I understand. From this and their brash, misguided, corrupted decision, I was wrongfully judged a murderer instead of a survivor. For this, all is forgiven. For this, I can still survive and stand tall, having an even greater, the greatest opportunity to finally be understood in the Supreme Court for my appeal. She ended the letter with 3 words. I didn't lose. Sarah Boone's legal journey did not end with her sentencing. She was appointed an attorney to handle her appeal, attorney number 10. He withdrew days later without explanation. Attorney number 11, Joshua Adams, took the case. He withdrew after he stopped practicing appellate work. Attorney number 12, Rodrigo Caruso, withdrew after accepting a new job. By November 2025, Sarah Boone was on her 13th attorney, David Maldonado. A deadline loomed for filing her appellate brief. Time was running out. In December 2025, Boone filed yet another complaint with the court. She said she didn't know who her appellate attorney was. She said she hadn't heard from him. She asked to be included on future correspondence. She remains in prison, serving a life sentence. Still fighting, still blaming others, still insisting she didn't lose. The Sarah Boone case exposed systemic strain on the public defender system. It demonstrated the limits of the constitutional right to counsel, and it showed how a defendant's conduct can result in the forfeiture of that right. Judge Kranick's ruling may become a precedent for other courts facing similar situations. A defendant who cycles through 8 attorneys, who refuses to cooperate with counsel, who uses conflicts to delay justice, may lose the right to court-appointed representation. The case also illustrated the power of digital evidence. Sarah Boone's own cell phone convicted her. Her own words, her own laughter, preserved forever on video. In an era where everyone carries a camera in their pocket, criminals are documenting their own crimes, and prosecutors are using that evidence to secure convictions. But perhaps the most important legacy of this case is the voice of Jorge Torres. His final words were captured on video. I can't breathe, babe. A man begging for his life. A man trapped in darkness. A man who died alone while the woman he loved mocked his suffering. Jorge Torres Jr. was 42 years old. He weighed 103 pounds. He left behind a mother, sisters, and daughters who will never see him again. His death was not an accident. It was not a game gone wrong. It was murder. And the evidence proved it. On February 23, 2020, Sarah Boone made a choice. She chose to confine Jorge Torres in a suitcase. She chose to taunt him as he struggled for air. She chose to go to bed and leave him to die. And she chose to record it. The videos were meant to humiliate him, to show him what it felt like to be powerless, to punish him for the abuse she said she had suffered. But those videos became the evidence that convicted her. Sarah Boone will spend the rest of her life in prison because of a decision she made in a moment of rage. A decision to prioritize revenge over mercy, punishment over compassion. She had the power to unzip the suitcase, to let him breathe, to save his life. She chose not to. That choice cost Jorge Torres his life, and it cost Sarah Boone her freedom. The suitcase sits in an evidence locker. a piece of blue fabric that became the instrument of death. The videos remain on file, a permanent record of cruelty. And Jorge Torres's family lives with the knowledge that his final moments were filled with terror, that he called out for help. That help never came. Justice was served in a courtroom in Orlando, Florida. A jury deliberated for 90 minutes. A judge imposed a life sentence. But no verdict can bring Jorge Torres back. No sentence can undo what Sarah Boone did. All that remains is the evidence, and the truth it tells.